Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Rain fell gently on Washington's Grand Avenue, creating small rivulets on the blackened asphalt. Amelia Johnson, daughter of the chief of police, stepped out of her car with the natural confidence that comes with power and family prestige. Her impeccable hair, tailored suit, and elegant smile were the epitome of perfection. Yet, that evening, her identity would be severely tested. A few meters away, a white police officer, Jake Reynolds, was patrolling, directing traffic. Without knowing who she was, or which family she represented, he simply noticed a young black woman crossing the street with a step he deemed too confident. In a brutal and condescending reflex, he shouted at her. "Hey, stop!" Amelia froze in surprise. Reynolds' gaze was hard, almost accusatory. "Can't you see you're obstructing traffic?" She replied calmly, her voice soft but firm. "Sir, I am crossing at the pedestrian crossing." But the police officer, blinded by prejudice, raised his hand and publicly humiliated her, fining her and threatening to arrest her. Passers-by watched the scene, some shocked, others silent in fear. What Jake Reynolds didn't know was that the young woman he had just belittled was not a stranger. She was the daughter of the most powerful man in the National Police Force. And this simple act would trigger a chain of events that would be completely beyond his control. The wind was blowing hard that evening, as if to announce that justice, one way or another, would find its way. Amelia Johnson was walking home, still reeling from the public humiliation. Every step on the sidewalk seemed to echo the anger and injustice she had just endured. Her father, General Marcus Johnson, had always instilled in his children a sense of honor and discipline, but tonight, none of it seemed to protect her. Jake Reynolds, the police officer who had arrested her, had already become a name in her mind. How could a mere civil servant dare treat the chief of police's daughter like that? She knew her father would never approve of such behavior, but she had to think before she reacted. The anger, though intense, had to be contained, for now. At home, in the discreet luxury of her residence, Amelia collapsed into her office chair. She dialed her best friend, Derek Harris, a lieutenant in the cybercrime unit. Derek had always been her confidant, the one she could tell anything to without fear of judgment. "Amelia, are you okay?" Derek asked in a worried voice. "No, Derek, not at all. A policeman humiliated me in the street, and he didn't even know who I was." Derek listened in silence, then murmured. "If it's Jake Reynolds, I know that guy. He's known for his arrogance, and for his lack of respect for those who aren't like him." Amelia clenched her fists. The feeling of injustice was turning into an icy resolve. She knew she couldn't let this go. But how could she retaliate without jeopardizing her own career or causing a national scandal? Meanwhile, Jake Reynolds, back at his post, was laughing with his colleagues, proud of having imposed his law. He was completely unaware that the young woman he had just belittled was Marcus Johnson's daughter. This ignorance would soon turn into a fatal mistake. And in the shadows, Marcus Johnson, in his office at headquarters, received an anonymous report describing the incident. His eyes filled with a coldness few had ever seen. He knew the storm had just begun. The game had just changed. The next morning, Amelia got up early, her face still marked by the humiliation of the previous day. But this time, it wasn't blind anger that guided her, but strategy. She had to act intelligently. Every gesture, every word had to be calculated. After all, she knew the terrain better than anyone, the police, the procedures, the media, nothing would escape her notice. She arranged to meet Derek Harris at a small, discreet cafe, away from prying eyes. Between sips of black coffee, she explained her plan, to document the incident, gather evidence, and identify all the witnesses. Derek nodded, impressed by her clear thinking. "Amelia, you're right," he said. "We can't let this guy humiliate you with impunity. And above all, you have to be sure everything is legal. If your father gets involved directly, it could become a national scandal." Amelia smiled, slightly bitter. That's exactly why I have to be careful. But Reynolds, he's going to regret what he did. Meanwhile, Jake Reynolds went about his routine, unaware that a storm was brewing. However, his carefree attitude was shattered when he received a call from headquarters. The incident report had been sent directly to General Marcus Johnson. The name of his daughter, Amelia, and the identity of the officer involved were clear. Reynolds, he murmured, suddenly pale. What does that mean? The news spread quickly among the officers. Some laughed nervously, others looked at Jake with newfound fear. Humiliating the commander-in-chief's daughter was no small matter. Behind the scenes, Amelia and Derek were already working to build a solid case, witness statements, surveillance videos, and even social media posts to document the humiliation. Each piece of evidence strengthened their position. That evening, in Marcus Johnson's office, the general contemplated the report with icy calm. He didn't want to intervene directly, not yet. But he knew one thing: Reynolds would soon realize that his arrogance had struck someone powerful. And for Jake, the shadow of a retribution he had never imagined was beginning to approach. The trap was slowly closing. Jake Reynolds spent the morning in an unusual state of anxiety. Every call, every message seemed to weigh on him like a constant reminder of his mistake. His colleagues, previously admiring or indifferent, were now whispering behind his back. The incident with Amelia Johnson had already begun to circulate, and he understood that his reputation was at stake. Amelia, for her part, was proceeding methodically. With Derek, she had gathered all the necessary evidence: surveillance videos, written statements, screenshots of online chats, and even an audio recording of Reynolds's humiliating tone. Nothing had been left to chance. She knew that to achieve justice, she had to strike with precision. She decided to take action during an official police meeting, which Jake was expected to attend. Her father, Marcus Johnson, had prepared a subtle maneuver. Rather than confronting Reynolds directly, he let Amelia present her evidence in a professional and measured manner. "Gentlemen," Amelia began in a calm but firm voice, "I wish to draw your attention to an incident that occurred last night. This is not merely a personal matter, but a breach of the fundamental principles of our institution." She projected the videos and documents, each unequivocally demonstrating Jake Reynolds's humiliating behavior toward her, a respectable citizen and, more importantly, the general's daughter. Silence fell over the room. The eyes of superiors, colleagues, and journalists present turned to Reynolds, whose confidence had vanished like snow in the sun. "Jake Reynolds," said Amelia, "your actions are unacceptable and do not reflect the values we represent. I urge you to be held accountable and accept the consequences of your actions." The tension was palpable. Reynolds, who had always been self-assured, felt vulnerable, as if exposed in front of everyone. For the first time, he understood that his behavior had gone beyond a simple personal altercation. He had offended moral and hierarchical law. General Marcus Johnson, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. "What you did, Reynolds, is a serious violation. You will have to answer before the disciplinary committee. I have never allowed racist and humiliating behavior to go unpunished." Jake could only lower his eyes. Anger and fear mingled within him. He knew he had just touched someone more powerful than himself, and that the game was no longer personal, but institutional. That day, Amelia won her first victory. But she knew it was only the beginning. Justice was on the march, and Reynolds would discover that beneath her calm and reserved demeanor lay an implacable determination. The wind had shifted, and the storm that Jake had unleashed was now falling back on him. A few days after the confrontation, the disciplinary committee met to review Jake Reynolds' conduct. Amelia, still calm but determined, presented the evidence she had meticulously gathered one last time. Each testimony, each video, showed not only the humiliation she had suffered, but also Reynolds' unprofessionalism and racial bias. The faces of the committee members were impassive, but the atmosphere was thick with tension. The heavy silence was finally broken by the voice of General Marcus Johnson. "The evidence is overwhelming. Reynolds, you are relieved of your duties and subject to immediate suspension. Your conduct has not only harmed a citizen, but has also tarnished the integrity of our institution." Jake, terrified and humiliated, felt the weight of his mistakes crash down upon him. The whispers of his colleagues and the media only amplified his shame. He had believed his authority allowed him to do anything, but he understood too late that power must come with responsibility and respect. Amelia, for her part, felt a wave of relief and inner triumph. She had not only defended her honor, but also affirmed that no one, regardless of their position, could afford to belittle or humiliate someone because of their skin color. That same evening, she met up with Derek to share the victory. "It's done," she said, smiling, "but it's not just for me. It's for everyone who suffers this kind of injustice." Derek nodded his head in admiration. "You transformed anger into strength and pain into justice. That's impressive." A few weeks later, Jake Reynolds was not only relieved of his duties but also assigned disciplinary work and mandatory awareness sessions. The humiliation he had inflicted was now turned against him, and his reputation tarnished. Amelia, for her part, continued her life with dignity and confidence, knowing that she had turned an important page. She understood that true strength lay not in power or authority, but in self-control and the ability to transform injustice into positive action. And so, the daughter of the chief of police had shown everyone that justice, even slow and methodical, always ends up striking those who ignore it.